Well, here, come on. October 11th, my e-album is being released and I am so excited. It's actually already up now on streaming platforms because it's 8 p.m. Newfoundland time and it went up last night. And it's out there on iTunes and Spotify. It's out there in the atmosphere somewhere. I don't know. We're up in a cloud somewhere, I suppose. And if you don't know how to get it down off of the cloud and start to use it, somebody that's around you knows how to do it, my dear, because I has to have people tell me about all that stuff too. So here we are, Molasses and Homemade Bread, my first e-album. I am so excited. And I got to thank a whole lot of people for helping me do this because I didn't know nothing hardly about it when I started. And I still only knows a bit about it, but I had really good people help me and that's what made the difference. So here's a bunch of thanks before I get started, before I do my little demonstration here tonight and a recitation or two. Dave Patton, he told me not to print CDs because he said he got 800 in his basement and he can't get rid of them. He gives them away all the time. Anybody wants a CD, call Dave Patton. And then there's Chris Andrews who put me onto Bread Talk. And that was the best thing that could ever happen to me because Bread Talk is absolutely amazing. And he recorded and he mixed and he mastered and he got it all ready and he helped me put it up online. And how wonderful is that? Because I never would have been able to do that by myself, you know. And then, of course, there's Stephen Green, who took the artwork that was done by my daughter, Lauren, and he formatted it to go on the up there in the streaming platforms. And, of course, Matthew, my son, gave me the title, Molasses and Homemade Bread. What a great title, great suggestion. And my sister Anne Marie, who is my technical support and the technical support of a whole lot of other people, never would have been able to do any of this without her, believe me, because I didn't know hardly anything about it before we started. And all my friends and family who've been my peanut gallery over the years, giving me ideas, giving me feedback, putting up with my endless recitations that they're probably tired of hearing now. Especially my brothers and sisters who, you know, I'd send a bit of information out to them or a question and they rattle it all back to me what they knew about it. So that was fantastic. And of course, my husband, Jim, who's been with me for over 40 years now, and he's been with me every single step of the way. So that's been a wonderful gift to me. There are so many local artists who were so generous to me in sharing their music on this album. And I am so overwhelmed by that. Most of these people don't even know me, but when I emailed them as a total stranger and explained to them what I was doing and sent out some samples, they were so kind, and I am so grateful to each and every one of you. And we're talking about Buddy, what's his name, and the other fellas, and Dave Panting, and Matthew Byrne, and Sherry Ryan, the wonderful Sherry Ryan, Jimmy Finn, Peter Knoll, and of course my own husband Jim, who one of his songs is on the album as well. And of course, for those people who over the years have given me their stories, have given me great gifts of stories. Without them, some of these recitations never would have been possible. So my partner in crime, my fellow concert crowd member, Noreen Press, my mother's first cousin, Teresa Marshall, God bless her, cousin Bill, who recently passed away, God rest his soul, who gave me a wonderful story about my grandfather, the late Rita Fien, my sister Bride, a couple of families who shall remain nameless, little bit of mystery there for you, and Branch 56 at the Legion. And of course, thanks always to my fellow concert crowd members who are an endless source of support and love, and also to the St. John's storytelling group who have been so supportive of me over the years as well. Thank you to everybody. And if I left somebody out, I'm really sorry. It's hard to remember everybody, especially at my age. So now, the title of my album is Molasses and Homemade Bread. Here we have a beautiful loaf of bread baked by my son Matthew, and some molasses, and some what we call butter back in the day. It's actually Eversweet margarine, but we always called it butter because when we were growing up, we only ever had Eversweet or Good Luck, and it wasn't like this. It was in little blocks, and that's what we call butter, even though it's not really butter. So I shall do a demonstration to you because in my recitation I talk about how there's two ways to do molasses and homemade bread. So you see, my mother would take the lovely pans of bread out of the oven and she'd have to let them cool, and then she'd slice off some of her beautiful bread for us, and we'd be there waiting, you know, because we'd be dying to have a bit. So you see, if you look at this now, see, Mom always wanted us to do it a certain way because she was really smart. And she knew that if she gave a house full of youngsters molasses and homemade bread, there was going to be a mess and she'd have to clean it up. And so Mom always wanted us to do it this way. And that was put the molasses on it first. Ooh, that's a lot of molasses. And let it kind of soak down into the bread, you know, let it get down there in the little air bubbles in the bread. And then, after you had that done, and it kind of soaked down there a bit, what she'd want you to do is take the butter or the margarine and put it on top and sort of make like a cover on top of it, right? But some people, who shall remain nameless, wanted to put the butter or the margarine on it first, you see, and then put it on like that. And then put the molasses on top. And see, if you do that, the molasses stays up there on top and it's kind of more slippery and slidey. And then if you give that to a youngster running around the house playing, it's probably going to go all over their clothes. So there's two ways, and in our family to this day, when we're all together, even if we're on Zoom these days, because some of us live away, some of my brothers and sisters, we still have the debate about the best way, the proper way to make molasses and homemade bread. And so I thought I would do that recitation for you first. Molasses and homemade bread from way back in the day when we were growing up, and lots of times we had a little bit of jam in the house, but we always had molasses and homemade bread because our mom baked bread probably 3 or 4 times a week. So that was one of the staples in our house, and we had it all seasons of the year. And so I thought I would do the lead or the opening track on my album for you as my first recitation. Molasses and homemade bread. In days of old, when moms baked bread and streams were cold and clear, when winter came and brought her snows and summertime came near, when we were kids and mom stayed home to rear up the whole crowd, when we had vegetable gardens in our yards and the beetles sounded loud, how I love to sit and ponder now those memories in my head. The days of wood stoves, berries picked, and molasses and homemade bread. The sights, the sounds, the smells of it, the flour, spoons and cups, the bread and rise, the bread pans greased, the oven heated up. And when the first pans came out, with butter wrapped no doubt, Mom would grease the hot buns and turn the first loaves out. They had to cool before she cut that precious loaf of bread. Of course, there is an art to this. Let me do it, she said. And so she'd cut the slices off for us 5 or 6 or 7, and we'd proceed to devour them, those pieces of white heaven. The way to eat bread and molasses was a source of great debate. Did you put the butter on it first and make the molasses wait? There were 2 schools of thought on this, and to this very day, we are still a family divided on the proper sort of way. In summer, when the sun beat down and hopscotch we did play. In fall, when leaves were turning with the shortening of day. Or in winter, coming home from sliding or from shinny on the pond, our mittens stiff with ice and snow after nighttime had come on. There was no nicer treat to find, nothing better before bed, and that special, yummy, delicious slice of molasses and homemade bread. A cup of tea to warm you up, a bed lunch for your belly, or a relish to bring your stomach to instead of a bowl of jelly. What joy it is to have now those memories in my head of days gone by when growing up, and molasses and homemade bread. There you go. Now, you know, my first storytellers were my mother and my father and my grandmother, Elizabeth. And I dedicate this album to them because really they were the people who started me out listening to stories and kind of telling stories in our family, and storytelling is a very important part of our family. We're still passing stories down through our family, and now we're passing stories on to our grandchildren, to our children and grandchildren. One of the stories that I got from a family member, from Teresa Marshall, a first cousin of my late mother's, was about having barrels come. Now, many people in their family, in the Gibbons family, from the North Shore Conception Bay, had gone to what they call the Boston States. And many families had family members go down there, during that time. Boston and New York and Maine and that part of the eastern seaboard of the United States, and of course many other places as well. And, when they got down there, usually they were of much better means than the people that they left behind here in Newfoundland. So years and years ago, long before there were all the forms of transportation we have today, the main way you would get there would be on a ship. So when people got down there and got established, quite often every now and then they'd have a few extra things, that they could send home to Newfoundland, home to the people they loved in Newfoundland. So Teresa could remember all those years ago as a child being so excited about getting a barrel come. So what would happen is the most secure container that families could find to put on a ship and send home to Newfoundland was a barrel, a wooden barrel. So they take whatever extra they had, and Teresa could remember her favorite thing to get was packs of flower seeds. She would get so excited when they would open up the barrel, and she would get packs of flower seeds to plant out in the garden. So Teresa gave me really the kind of the bones of this story, and I wrote it many years ago about getting a barrel from Boston. And I've done this recitation so many times over the years, and I've actually had people come up to me after I've done the recitation and say, I still remember getting a barrel come years ago when I was a child, and our family would get that, and it would just be so wonderful because you would have a few things that weren't new, but they were new to you. And of course, when we were growing up over the years, our family would get barrels. They weren't barrels, but they were usually boxes or suitcases or bags, and quite often it was Teresa herself who dropped in on her way out around the bay and dropped off a few things for our family that her children had outgrown. Anyhow, I thought I would do this recitation for you, and of course I called it Barrel from Boston. And with great thanks to Teresa for the bones of this story. Come down across the garden. Come down, the message said. We had a barrel come from Boston. Sure, I went right off my head. Bridie, stop what you are doing and come quick as a mouse. And we ran down across the garden to our sister Minnie's house. Now, our Aunt Nellie Gibbons had left home 20 years ago, and she settled down in Boston with her young and handsome beau. But every now and then, she'd gather up what was on hand, and she'd place it in a barrel to send home to Newfoundland. It was a source of great excitement, and it made us burst with pride, so the family would gather to survey the things inside. There was a suit for Michael and a brand new dress for Mom, a set of red suspenders, and a pair of boots for Tom. Bridie got a sweater, Sam got a lovely shirt, Katie found an overcoat, and Min a woolen skirt. But way down in the bottom was the prize I liked the best. I knew Aunt Nellie sent them in the bottom of the chest. It was 6 packs of flower seeds she sent me from her store to plant out in my garden so I'd have blooms galore. Well, we took the things we needed and we gave the rest away to neighbours, friends and relatives out around the bay. So here's to all the barrels, the boxes and the bags that came from Boston and New York with far off distant tags. To the folks who minded family and packed up those precious plums, sure it turned paupers into princes when we had the barrels come. Now, I'm going to tell you, I hope everybody enjoys my 12 recitations that I have selected for for this album. I hope you all enjoy. I know you will enjoy the beautiful music that has gone with my recitation. So wonderful. And you can buy it on all the online streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, TikToc is something totally different. Don't try to buy it on TikTok because you're not going to get it. TikTok. And all those places where you can buy music online. It's $9.99 for the whole album, or 99 cents per track. And I hope you really enjoy it. So the last thing I want to do is show you my beautiful cover art done by my daughter. And I hope that you really enjoy my first album, Molasses and Homemade Bread. Good night, everybody. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate all your love and support. Take good care and stay safe out there.